Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. The galaxy feared them. Until one human warship changed everything. The Drexer didn't conquer planets, they erased them. Every transmission that warned of their approach ended with the same 3 words, run. They're here. Entire civilizations vanished overnight. No diplomacy, no mercy, just fire from the skies and blackened ruins left behind. And for the longest time the galaxy did nothing. The Council of 11, made up of the most advanced alien species in the quadrant, chose survival over resistance. Evacuate and retreat, they said. Preserve the knowledge. Wait for the storm to pass. But the storm never passed, it just grew. The Drexer were brutal insectoid monsters with advanced tech and no interest in anything but dominance. They'd swept across 3 sectors in 4 galactic years, and no one, not even the warrior class, had slowed them down. That's when the whispers started about a warship from a forgotten race, a ship built for one thing, to destroy. The humans had been gone for decades. Officially, they were non-compliant primitives with a disturbing love for chaos. Unofficially, they were feared. Rumor said they'd been kicked out of the Galactic Accord for their refusal to disarm. They called it security, the Council called it madness. Humans didn't just fight, they enjoyed it. And so humanity faded from galactic memory until the Battle of KIR-4. KIR-4 was a mid-tier trade planet, nothing special but it was strategic. And when the Drexer descended, the Council didn't even bother sending help. It was already written off. But that night, the sky changed. Council surveillance drones caught it all. The Drexer mothership, as big as a small moon, hovered above the planet, its cannons glowing with pre-fire energy. Below, civilians screamed, trying to reach underground bunkers. Then the scanners glitched just for a second, then again, and suddenly a reading, classified vessel detected. No origin, no Council Idaho, nothing, until it decloaked. It was long, black, and quiet. Its silhouette cut through space like a blade. No flashy colors, no translation pings, just one name etched in scarred steel across the hull, HSS Vengeance. The Drexer ship paused, probably confused, then charged weapons. The human warship didn't wait. It fired a single shot, but not from any Council weaponry. This was different, dense, burning, with a sound that rattled bones even through the vacuum. The kind of firepower you didn't regulate, the kind you buried deep in forgotten military laws. The Drexer ship flinched. Its shields cracked like glass, and then, to everyone's disbelief, it retreated. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Drexer ran. The footage went viral. The whispers turned into desperate messages, find the humans. We need them. If they have ships like that. But humans don't answer calls, at least not politely. The HSS Vengeance didn't send a message. No contact, no communications. It simply vanished back into the black. The Drexer regrouped. They hit twice as hard at Goran Prime, trying to bury the embarrassment. Another planet gone. But there was something different now, fear. The galaxy had never seen the Drexer fear anything. But they feared that ship. And what the Council didn't know, what no one knew, was that the Vengeance wasn't alone. It was the first. The humans were watching. They had been watching. And now they were coming back. The Drexer weren't used to losing, especially not to a ship from a species they'd assumed was extinct or too primitive to matter. But after KIR-4, something in their hive shifted. Their strategists, those grotesque, telepathic brains suspended in nutrient tanks, stopped underestimating humanity. They started planning for them. For the Drexer, fear wasn't an emotion, it was an alarm in the hive mind, a signal that screamed unpredictable threat. And unpredictability was something the Drexer couldn't control. That made it dangerous. The Overmind, perched in orbit above the shattered remains of Goran Prime, summoned every surviving scout drone and war beast to Sector 12, where Kir Thor had been. The orders were simple: track the human warship, analyze, capture, dissect. They even brought the Reavers, genetically engineered Drexer assassins bred for only one thing: hunting rare threats. But the humans had already moved on. Out in the dead zone, beyond council-regulated space, the HSS Vengeance drifted in the shadow of a broken moon. Inside, it was nothing like the council ships with their smooth curves and ambient lighting. The Vengeance was steel, wires, old battle scars, and flickering lights. The air carried the faint scent of burnt circuits and blood, and at its heart sat Commander Lynn Vale. She wasn't a diplomat. She wasn't a politician. She was warforged, cut from Earth's last generation of soldiers before they'd gone dark. Her eyes were tired, her voice rasped from years of recycled air and too many bad memories, but her hands were steady as death. She watched the recordings from KIR-4 again, not out of pride, but calculation. The shot that pierced the Drexer mothership's shield had been from their prototype rail core. They only had 2 rounds left. "Any word from Earth?" she asked. Her tactical officer, Jin, looked up from the console. Still radio silence. HQ's not acknowledging council transmissions. No change. Vale snorted. Of course not. Typical. That was the thing about humanity: when the council kicked them out decades ago, humans didn't beg to stay. They vanished, shut down all beacons, left no trace. They had made a pact: if the galaxy didn't want them, then the galaxy could survive without them. But the galaxy hadn't survived. The Council's peace treaties were worth less than the stars they floated near. Every species had disarmed, grown soft, traded their weapons for philosophy. Humanity didn't completely vanish. Vale stood and walked toward the command deck window. Outside, the stars shimmered, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, Earth still spun, still watched. But even she didn't know exactly where, and she wasn't heading back, not yet. "Commander, Jin," said someone suddenly, urgency in his voice. "We've got a ping. Multiple ships dropping from warp. Drexer signature." Vale's jaw clenched. "How many?" 14. No mother ship, but one Reaver class, heavy recon. Jin smirked. "They're sending dogs to sniff us out." "Orders, let them sniff." The Vengeance didn't cloak this time. It stayed visible like bait in open space. The Drexer warships approached, weapons charged. One of them pulsed a warning signal in standard code: "Stand down. Prepare for capture." Vale leaned over the comms. "Jin, play the message." He blinked. "What message?" "The one I recorded after KIR-4. He nodded, tapped a few keys, and a distorted human voice crackled across the battlefield, angry, tired, and clear. "To the Drexer Overmind, you wanted to conquer. You should have checked under the bed before waking the monster. You want war. You just found it." And then she cut comms. "Fire," Vale said. The Vengeance lit up. Railcore round number 2 screamed through the black and smashed straight through the Drexer Reaver ship, splitting it in half like a melon under a hammer. The shockwave tore 2 others apart. The remaining ships scattered, but Vale wasn't chasing. She didn't have the ammo for that. She wanted them to run, let them report back, let the Overmind know, humans weren't just back, they were hunting. The Drexer didn't retreat often, it wasn't part of their nature. But when the fractured remains of their recon fleet limped back to the Overmind, something inside the hive shifted again. This time more urgently, more chaotically, the humans were real. They were dangerous, and worse, they were unpredictable. The Overmind issued an emergency override across its fleet clusters. It paused the next wave of planetary assaults and instead focused its full computational force on one question: where had the humans gone all these years? That answer wasn't in any council archives. It wasn't on any trade route logs or alliance charts. Humanity hadn't just disappeared, they'd buried themselves under myths and fear. Even the council didn't know what had really happened. They assumed humanity had fractured, maybe even gone extinct after their exile. But the truth was hidden on a scorched little planet at the edge of an unmarked system, Earth. Beneath layers of dust and silence, Earth had evolved in secret. After being exiled by the council, human leaders made a brutal decision. They cut all communication, burned the satellites, shut down deep space relays. They didn't want to be found, not until they were ready. And ready they had become. The surface of Earth was a wasteland on purpose, a decoy, a message to any curious observer that humanity had collapsed. But buried deep beneath old continents, in caverns reinforced with neutronium steel, was the cradle, a subterranean complex that spanned half a hemisphere. Here, humanity thrived. They trained, researched, built weapons not even the council could imagine. They engineered warships like the Vengeance, few, yes, but lethal. And most importantly, they remembered. Every Drexer attack across the galaxy had been monitored, catalogued, analyzed. Humanity had never truly disappeared. They'd watched from the shadows, building weapons while the rest of the galaxy disarmed itself in the name of peace. They knew this day would come, the day when someone like the Drexer would see weakness and come for everything. And now that day was here. Inside the cradle, the highest-ranking officials of Earth's hidden military stood around a glowing table, staring at a simulation of the galaxy. Red zones, Drexer-occupied territories, were spreading like a virus, but now, blinking in the middle of the black, was a small blue dot. The Vengeance's Commander Vale made contact. General Reeves, an old war hawk with cybernetic lungs and half a face made of war-grade chrome, said, "Successful engagement." She sent the message, and the council asked Minister Tari, head of strategic diplomacy, though diplomacy hadn't been useful for a long time, still silent. Reeves said, "Or too scared to admit they need us." A pause, then Tari leaned forward, voice low, "It's time, isn't it?" Reeves nodded. "Yes. No more shadows, no more hiding. The Drexer picked a fight with the wrong species. Activate the fleet at once." Alarms rang softly throughout the cradle. Hangars the size of cities roared to life. Massive warships, long thought scrapped or destroyed, powered up. Their cores thrummed like sleeping gods awakening. One by one, names lit up on a massive screen above the operations deck: HSS Retribution, HSS Warlord, HSS Ghost Hammer, HSS Final Dawn, and dozens more. Each vessel was piloted by Earth's finest soldiers, trained not for defense but for extinction-level war. These weren't peacekeepers, they were avengers. Meanwhile, Commander Vale aboard the Vengeance received a priority encrypted signal. She read the blinking words and felt her stomach twist, not in fear, but in anticipation: "You're not alone anymore. Fleet en route." She leaned back in her chair, a ghost of a smile playing on her lips. Let's see how the Drexer handle round 2. Out in the stars, the Drexer weren't idle. The Overmind had already shifted its strategies: no more scouts, no more probing. It would bring its full strength, all hives, all ships. It would swarm Earth before the humans could gather. Because deep inside the Drexer collective, a fear they'd never known had taken root, the kind of fear that only humans could inspire. Space had never been quiet, but now it screamed. Sensors across the galaxy lit up as the Drexer made their move. Thousands of warships emerged from void rifts, wormhole-like tears in space they carved open using stolen energy from dying stars. These weren't scout fleets anymore, these were extermination hives. Their target wasn't a council world, it wasn't a trade hub, it was Earth. The Overmind had learned that humanity wasn't some forgotten species clinging to ancient tech. They had planned, evolved, and trained in isolation. And now that the HSS Vengeance had exposed them again, the hive mind had come to one conclusion: eliminate the source before it spreads. The Drexer swarm approached like a tidal wave of living steel, unfeeling, unrelenting, and impossibly vast. But they were already too late. Earth's moon shifted. It wasn't a moon, not anymore. It hadn't been since the humans turned it into Lunabase 1, a disguised orbital defense fortress. Its surface split open, revealing colossal weapon batteries. Entire continents of automated missile silos rotated into position. From deep beneath Earth's surface, dozens of warships launched, hidden for decades, cloaked, waiting for this moment. They weren't as big as the Drexer Hive ships, they didn't need to be. They were human ships, each one designed to punch holes in celestial bodies, each one piloted by people who grew up training for this. Commander Vale, now flanked by 2 more human cruisers, received her combat orders: delay the swarm until Earth's main fleet arrives. Great, she muttered, tapping the cracked console. 3 ships against a space plague. Better odds than usual, Jin grinned. The Vengeance turned toward the incoming Drexer advance. With its rail cores now reloaded and weapon capacitors at full charge, it dove straight into the black. The first Drexer ship to engage them, a razor-winged Harvester class, never even fired. The Vengeance's rail core burned a molten hole straight through its thorax. 2 more came up from starboard. Let him. Jin shouted. Let him, Vale replied. The 2 human support ships, the HSS Emberclaw and HSS Warden, peeled off and cut clean through the enemy's flank. Human ship design prioritized forward-fighting brute force and brutal maneuverability. They didn't dance in space like council vessels, they brawled, they bullied. The Drexer weren't used to being hit this hard. One of their hive ships, bristling with cannonous turrets and acidic breachers, launched a full assault on Earth's atmosphere, but it never made it from Lunabase 1. Heaven's Spear activated, a prototype orbital rail weapon. It was capable of firing a solid tungsten rod at half the speed of light. It only needed 1 shot. The spear tore through space, struck the hive ship dead center, and didn't stop. It kept going, ripping through 2 more Drexer vessels before vanishing into deep space. The result, 3 destroyed ships and silence across the swarm's neural network. A sudden pause, a gap, an emotion, confusion, fear. Down below on Earth's command deck, General Reeves watched the battle unfold. Every instinct in his war-wired brain screamed, press the advantage. Launch full fleet, he ordered. All units. No more secrets. We go loud across Earth and its orbit. 100 warships jumped into battle, no cloaks, no stealth. Their arrival was thunder in space. Fire rained from the stars. Human ships didn't glide, they charged. Inside the swarm, something faltered. The Drexer overmind recalculated. Humanity wasn't isolated anymore. They weren't fractured. They were unified, disciplined, and worst of all, they knew how to win. It sent out a distress ping across its network, a signal meant only for the ancient Drexer warcast. Being so violent, they'd been locked away even from their own hive for fear they'd devour the swarm itself. The Overmind didn't care anymore, it would rather risk its own collapse than lose to the humans. But the humans weren't finished either. The HSS Retribution, Earth's largest warship, jumped into orbit. It was the size of a small city and dark as a funeral ship, with 1 word glowing across its armored side: never again. Commander Vale watched it appear on her scopes and whispered, well, looks like the old bastards brought the big guns. The Drexer had come to destroy Earth, but Earth wasn't a planet anymore, it was a weapon. They came from the void between stars, the ancient ones, the Drexer's last gamble, the warcast. Even the Overmind trembled when it awakened them, not out of fear, fear was a luxury it didn't possess, but out of cold hive-level logic. These were not ships, these were living weapons, bred during the Drexer's earliest conquests, back when the galaxy still burned fresh with the ashes of their first victims. They had no names, no language, just a command: destroy. While most Drexer vessels resembled jagged metal fused with biotech, the warcast ships were something else entirely, alive in every sense. Each one was a colossal, biomechanical beast, the size of moons, wrapped in muscle, bone armor, and void ink skin that shimmered with unnatural color. Eyes pulsed along their hulls. Limbs clawed at space itself as they moved. Inside them lived the oldest, most violent instincts of the swarm. And now they were coming for Earth. On the command deck of the HSS Retribution, General Reeves watched the long-range scans and didn't speak for a long time. Around him, officers shifted nervously, even hardened veterans stared at the readings with pale faces. "Are we looking at a planet?" one finally asked. "No," Reeves said flatly. "That's not a planet, that's a monster." Across the fleet, battle readiness went to max, shield matrices charged, cannon arrays locked into target mode, and all human ships repositioned in a massive arc around Earth's orbit. The plan was simple: hold the line. But no one underestimated what was coming. Commander Vale, now docked temporarily on the Retribution, stood shoulder to shoulder with Reeves, watching the visual feed as one of the warcast broke through a starfield like a serpent from hell. It didn't warp, it ripped through space, jaws first, shrieking across frequencies not meant for any mind to hear. "Sir," Jin called through comms from the Vengeance still in orbit, "the Drexer just dropped one of their own ships, the warcast devoured it." Vale hissed through her teeth, "Even the swarm can't control them. They don't want to." Reeves muttered, "They just want Earth broken before the humans unite the galaxy." And that's exactly what had started happening. Across Council space, alien species that once turned their backs on humanity were watching Earth's defense in disbelief. Some sent messages, others sent ships. Nothing coordinated yet, but something was shifting. The galaxy was starting to rally, but Earth couldn't wait, not with those things inbound. As the first warcast entity neared orbit, Earth's planetary defense grid fired everything: rail guns, plasma barge, EMP lances, but nothing slowed it. The creature twisted mid-space, absorbing energy through layered void flesh and firing back, not missiles, not lasers. It roared, a deep subspace growl that ruptured two human ships from the inside. The Vengeance, still holding in lower orbit, took a near hit, hull integrity dropped to 41%. Inside, sparks flew as consoles overloaded. Jin was thrown against the wall, blood streaking his cheek. Vale gritted her teeth and slammed her fist on the panel. "Get us back in the air." Another shriek from the warcast, and one of Earth's orbital towers split in half, metal and fire raining down toward the Pacific. Then came the Retribution's moment. "Target locked," the gunnery officer called out. Reeves gave the word. The Retribution's main cannon fired its judgment core, a superdense fusion shell encased in quantum foam. The recoil alone cracked part of its aft spine, but the result was impact. The warcast shrieked again, but this time in pain, real pain. The shell tore through 3 of its limbs and embedded itself deep into its torso, where it began to detonate internally. The creature thrashed, pulling debris and even smaller Drexer ships into its gravity. But it didn't die. It just turned right toward Earth, right toward the Retribution. It was coming, and this time, it wasn't roaring, it was charging. "Where are we on railcore power?" Vale asked, dropping into her command chair. Jin wiped blood off his forehead, his voice shaking, "We've got just enough charge for one shot." "That's it." She nodded. "Then we don't miss." "Commander," he hesitated, "if we fire this close, recoil could rip us in half." Vale didn't blink. "If we don't fire, that thing tears Earth in half." The Vengeance powered forward, pushing every last drop of energy into acceleration. They needed a line of sight for the shot, and that meant getting dangerously close, too close. Inside the warcast, ancient biological systems reacted, spines emerged from its flanks, kitten cannons lit up, preparing to fire. "Weapons incoming!" Jin yelled. Vale didn't flinch. "Full shields forward. Divert all non-essential systems." "You mean life support?" "Yep." The Vengeance surged through the debris field. One Drexer pod clipped their wing, another burst against their shield. Fire raged through the lower deck, but no one stopped. Every crew member knew what this was. It wasn't a mission, it was a suicide charge. Locked on, Jin gasped. We have a shot. Vale stood up. The creature's central eye opened wide, its pupil glowing like a singularity. She could feel it looking at her. Not the ship, her. She leaned over the comms and sent one final message to the Retribution's Commander Vale of the HSS Vengeance, engaging final shot. If this doesn't work, burn everything. Do not let this thing reach Earth. And then she turned to Jin. Fire. The rail core screamed. The weapon drew energy from the ship's spine, cracked the deck, bent the Vengeance's structure nearly in half, then fired a solid ferromass slug wrapped in magnetoplasma, a weapon so dense it nearly broke gravity as it passed. The slug struck the Warcast dead in the central eye. A silence followed, not the kind that was peaceful, but the kind that comes just before something explodes. Then it hit. The eye shattered like brittle glass. Inside, energy surged out like a supernova caught in a cage. The beast thrashed, shrieking across every known frequency. Lightning arced from its limbs. Its body folded inward the way a dying star collapses into itself. Get us out of here. Vale yelled. Engines are fried. They didn't escape, not entirely. The shockwave hit them head-on. The Vengeance spun out, spiraling, its hull tearing open. The last thing Vale saw was the flames reaching for the bridge. Then, darkness. Back on Earth, the Retribution tracked the Warcast's vitals, what little they could understand of it. And after 30 agonizing seconds, flatline. The Warcast entity was dead. Humanity had done what no species in the galaxy had managed to do, they had killed a god. The Retribution's calm flared to life with static. A garbled voice broke through, is Commander Vale still alive? The bridge crew fell silent. Reeves leaned in, heart hammering. Repeat that, is she alive? The signal crackled, then cleared, still breathing. Ship's gone, but I'm not. Against all odds, Vale had survived. A single escape pod floated among the wreckage of the Vengeance, burnt, twisted, but intact. The humans pulled her in. She awoke hours later in a medical bay, tubes in her arms, pain in every cell of her body. Reeves sat nearby, expression unreadable. You did it, he said quietly. Vale winced. Told you I wouldn't miss. Then she passed out again, and outside, above Earth, the stars were quiet. For now, the Warcast was dead. The stars had gone quiet, but silence never meant peace, it just meant everyone was listening now. Within hours of the Vengeance's final strike, the once silent Galactic Council came scrambling back to the table like panicked diplomats after a bar fight that had never started. Hollow signals poured into Earth's outer systems, pleas for negotiation, offers of support, carefully worded apologies that danced around decades of abandonment. Earth answered none of them. They didn't have to, because the galaxy had just witnessed something no treaty, alliance, or diplomatic resolution had ever achieved, a Drexer Warcast had fallen. Not by Council forces, not by some miracle, but by a single forgotten species they had labeled too aggressive to integrate. Now those same aggressors were the only reason half the galaxy still existed. Commander Vale, still recovering in the med bay aboard the Retribution, woke to find her room filled with officers. General Reeves stood near the door, arms folded, jaw clenched. She blinked through the haze of painkillers. What? She rasped. No flowers. Reeves said dryly. And the Council wants to offer you their highest honor. Vale tried to sit up, but winced. They can shove it. I didn't save the galaxy for a pin and a speech. We figured you'd say that. What about the Drexer? Reeves's face darkened. The rest of the swarm is pulling back. That railcore shot did more than kill a Warcast, it scared them. For the first time in their history, they're retreating, reorganizing. Vale narrowed her eyes. Which means they'll be back. Reeves nodded. With more worse. She exhaled slowly. Then we need to be ready. That was the new conversation now, not whether humanity could defend itself, but who would lead the galaxy into war. Across Council space, unrest was boiling. Species once loyal to the Council had begun sending envoys to Earth instead, trade offers, military alliances. The Brock warriors even proposed joint combat training, admitting publicly that humans had outmatched them. One by one, the Council's credibility was crumbling, and in its place, humanity was rising, not as conquerors, but as the last reliable wall between survival and extinction. At Earth Command, the debates began. Some leaders wanted to seize the moment, break the Council completely, and form a human-led galactic coalition. Others warned of repeating the mistakes of the old empires. Vale was summoned to the War Council 3 days after she woke. Her body was still aching, her left arm wrapped in a neuro bandage, and every step made her ribs scream. But when she entered the chamber, everyone stood, even Reeves. She didn't waste time. "We're not politicians," she said. "We don't need medals, and we're not here to wave flags. We're still at war." A screen lit up behind her, showing the latest scans from deep space, 3 more Warcast readings, all moving, all hungry. The Drexer aren't finished. They're learning, evolving. The Overmind won't make the same mistake twice. The room went quiet. She stepped forward, voice harder now. If the galaxy wants peace, it's going to have to fight for it. Not with treaties, not with silence, but with action. Earth stood alone and won. Imagine what we could do together. Reeves stepped in beside her. The question now isn't who leads, it's who's still willing to fight. Messages from alien factions flooded the comms that day, not just messages of support, but enlistment requests. Pilots from Tiety, strategists from the Oran, even Council defectors were offering intelligence. For the first time, humanity wasn't the outsider, they were the center. But somewhere far beyond charted space, in the Drexer's hidden hive worlds, the Overmind had begun creating something worse than the Warcast, something bigger, something meant to erase not just Earth, but the memory of it. And it was already moving. The Overmind had one final card to play. In the cold, ancient void beyond mapped space, where suns died without ever having been named, it stirred awake its deepest nightmare, the only weapon it had sealed away even from itself. It was called the Hollow Star. Not a ship, not a beast, not even a warcast, it was a planet-sized hive built in secret across millennia, wrapped in living Drexer flesh and armor fused with the remains of consumed civilizations. Inside it, billions of dormant soldiers pulsed beneath a blackened crust, while its core burned with the neural network of 100 Overmind fragments stitched together into a singular, thinking God. The Hollow Star didn't move like a fleet, it devoured systems, and it was heading straight for Earth. Back on Earth, the war alarms echoed across every continent for the first time since the first Exodus. The Retribution and what remained of the fleet were already at half strength from the Warcast battle, and yet the new threat was orders of magnitude greater. But this time, humanity wasn't alone. In Earth orbit, a new kind of fleet had assembled. The banner didn't bear Earth's flag, it didn't carry the Council's either. It bore a symbol newly minted, a white star split with a red line, the sign of the unified resistance. Humans, along with a dozen other species, once fractured, now united.